Hello everyone. Please tell me, which city are you listening from? What time is it there? Is everything okay? Or does it feel like someone's watching you? The first time I noticed it, I thought I was just imagining things. It was early morning. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, and the dim blue of dawn spilled across my bedroom floor. I was lying alone in bed, as always my one-bedroom apartment. In the city didn't have room for guests anyway. But when I turned to reach for my phone, I saw it. On the other side of the bed was an imprint. A full, human-shaped indentation. The mattress dipped the way it would if someone had been lying there for hours. It was still fresh. I sat up immediately, confused. I looked around the apartment. Every window was locked. The door was chained, the bathroom empty, closet untouched. It had to be a weird pressure thing, I told myself. Maybe I'd shifted in my sleep, rolled back and forth without realizing it. Memory can be foggy after dreams. Maybe it was that. That's what I told myself until the next morning, and the one after that, and the one after that. Each day I woke up, the imprint beside me looked more defined, like someone had laid there longer, like they had turned toward me in the night, like they were watching me. I never felt anything, never heard anything, but the imprint was always there, subtly shifted. Sometimes I'd find the covers pulled down halfway, disturbed in a way I couldn't explain. I live alone. No one has a key. No one visits me. I stopped sleeping properly. I tried to stay awake as long as I could, playing videos, music, leaving the light on. I thought maybe I'd catch whatever it was before it disappeared, but I never did. Until one night, I had placed a camera in the corner of my bedroom, a cheap webcam connected to my laptop. It would record the entire night. That way, I could prove to myself that nothing was there, that my mind was playing tricks on me. When I woke up that morning, the imprint was there again, deep, almost, curled toward my side, heart pounding. I ran to my laptop and opened the recording. At first it was normal. Hours passed. I was still. Then at 3:12 a.m., the camera flickered. A shadow appeared beside me. Slowly, it didn't walk in. It didn't climb in. It just faded into view. An outline. It lay down next to me. And for the next 2 hours, it just stayed there. Still, silent. Watching, it had no face. Just a blur. But I could tell whatever it was, it saw me, and then, at 5:17 a.m., it vanished. I didn't sleep again for days. I threw out the bed, bought a new one, changed the sheets, burned the mattress. I even saged the whole apartment, though I didn't really believe in any of that. But the next morning, the imprint was back, fresh on the new mattress. No matter where I placed the bed, in the living room, in the hallway. Even when I tried sleeping on the couch by morning, the imprint was there. Even worse. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and feel the dip beside me in real time, like someone had just gotten in, breathing slow, close. One night, I kept my eyes closed. My back was turned to the imprint. I could feel warmth behind me, breathing. I don't know what it was, but I couldn't move, couldn't scream. And then I felt it. Fingers brushing against my back. Not roughly, gently, like someone comforting me, like it didn't want to hurt me, like it wanted to stay. I moved to a hotel the next night. Cheap place, nothing fancy. I didn't care. I just wanted to sleep. I didn't tell them anything, just booked a room, lay down, and, for the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. When I woke up in the morning, there was an imprint beside me. I don't know how. I don't know what it wants. I don't think it wants to hurt me, but I also don't think it wants to leave. I've tried moving, I've tried hotels, I've tried other countries. Every morning, no matter where I sleep, no matter how far I run, there's an imprint beside me. And lately, it's getting closer. Now, I wake up with my hair slightly tousled, with my hand curled in someone else's direction. Once, I found my lips slightly parted warm, as if I'd been whispering something in my sleep, but I never remember the dream. Last night, I thought I heard it speak, just before I woke up. A whisper, so close to my ear, "Don't leave me alone again." I don't think I'm alone anymore. I don't think I'll ever be alone again. And somehow, that thought terrifies me more than anything else, because now, when I go to sleep, I leave a little space beside me, and I try not to think about how warm it feels before morning. I moved into the old townhouse on Langmore Street in late October, the sort of season where fog clings to the windows like breath on a mirror, and the sun forgets to rise properly. The house had stood vacant for years before I rented it. The landlord never said why. I didn't ask. It was cheap, large enough for me, and tucked away from noise and people, exactly what I needed after my last apartment, where shouting neighbors and police sirens were a nightly affair. I live alone, always have. It suits me. I like silence. I like knowing that every sound has a source I can trace. The click of the kettle, the hum of the fridge, the distant creak of the radiator coming to life. But in this house, silence was different. It wasn't peaceful. It was expectant, like a breath held just beyond hearing. I told myself I was being dramatic. I often am. The first night I slept poorly, not from fear, just from change. New beds always feel like borrowed clothes, too firm, too cold. But when I slid under the covers, I noticed something strange. The bed was warm, not faintly warmed from sunlight or heating. No, warm, as though someone had been lying there just moments before. I blinked, confused. Maybe the previous tenant had only recently left. But the air didn't smell like anyone. The sheets were clean to clean. They smelled like bleach, and bleach alone. I lay there for a moment, hand pressed against the mattress, and felt that unmistakable warmth soak into my palm. Like body heat, I shook it off. Maybe it was just my own nerves, or the way fabric holds heat. I turned over and tried to sleep. I woke up at 3:12 a.m., wide awake, my skin slick with sweat, the kind of waking that feels like something shook you from the inside. The room was pitch black, not dark, empty like even the shadows had left. The bed beside me was warm again, warmer than before. I sat up, heartbeat loud in my ears. I live alone. That fact circled my mind like a siren. I flipped on the bedside lamp. The room was unchanged. The door was shut, the windows latched, but the air was thick, heavier. My breath felt slow, like I was inhaling water. I stood up, walked to the thermostat. It read 15 degrees Celsius, but the bed still radiated heat like someone had just left it. I didn't sleep again that night. By the third day, the warmth had become a pattern. No matter what time I went to bed, 10 p.m., midnight, 2 a.m., The sheets were warm when I climbed in. I started checking. I'd run my hand across the bed right before brushing my teeth. Ice cold. Come back 5 minutes later, warm again. Once, I even stripped the sheets off entirely and replaced them with a new set from my closet. I checked the mattress beneath, cold. Then I went to the bathroom for less than 2 minutes. When I came back, the new sheets were warm. That was when I stopped brushing it off. I bought motion sensors, placed them around the house, set up a cheap baby monitor in the bedroom just to see. The first night, it picked up nothing. The second night, it picked up breathing. Not mine. Slow, steady, rhythmic breathing. From right beside where I was lying. I reviewed the footage 5 times. There was no one in the room. No body. No movement. Just the sound, like someone sleeping beside me, exhaling inches from the microphone. I didn't know how to process that. I didn't tell anyone. Who would I tell? My bed's too warm. It sounds laughable, but it wasn't funny. It was terrifying in its mundanity. Because if it had screamed at me, or scratched me, or thrown something that I could fight. But this was subtle, quiet, persistent, a presence with patience. Then the dreams began. I started seeing a figure, always just outside the frame. A woman, I think, long dark hair, skin too pale, eyes that never blinked. In my dreams, I'd wake up in bed, not really waking, just inside the dream, and she'd be standing at the foot of the bed, unmoving. She never said anything. She never moved. She just watched. The dreams were always at 3 a.m. sharp. In one, I tried to scream but couldn't open my mouth. In another, I blinked and found her lying beside me. Facing me, her nose almost touching mine, her eyes open, endless, black. That was the night I almost moved out. Almost, but some part of me, the part that writes stories, the part that digs into strange things instead of running, told me to stay. Just a little longer. So I did. And things got worse. I started noticing impressions in the mattress. Indents, shallow ones, like the weight of a person lying there. One night, I woke up to find my arm resting over something warm, solid, shaped like a human body. But there was nothing there. Just air. But I felt the outline. I felt the shoulder, the dip of a waist, the slow rise and fall of something breathing. I snapped my arm back, sat up, flipped on the light. Nothing. I started sleeping on the couch. The couch never warmed, never made sounds, never breathed, but the dreams followed me there. One night, I heard whispering, soft, rhythmic, like lullabies hummed underwater. I couldn't understand the words. They weren't in English, maybe not in any language, but they felt ancient, heavy, sad. I started hearing them even when I was awake, faintly at first, only around 3 a.m. Then, any time I walked past the bedroom. Then, one night, I heard them in my ear, close, intimate, like someone lying inches away, sharing a secret they've never told anyone else. I turned on every light in the house, slept with them on, but even light can't keep certain things out. Not when they're already in. One morning, I found a second toothbrush in my bathroom, identical to mine, just slightly used, bristles, frayed, a strand of black hair wrapped around it. I don't have black hair. That same day, my bedroom mirror fogged up, even though I hadn't used the shower. When I wiped it clean, I saw 2 sets of footprints behind me, mine and another. I turned. No one, but the bed. From the corner of my eye, the sheets were rumpled, as if someone had just climbed out. The final straw was a voice, a whisper, one night. Just before I drifted to sleep, it said my name. Whispered it, not like a threat, like a comfort, like someone who knew me, who had been watching for a long time. Sleep now, I'll keep you warm. I haven't slept in that room since. I sleep in my car now, parked far away from the house. But sometimes, even there, I wake up sweating, and the seat beside me is warm. It began quietly. A week after I moved into my new apartment, I started waking up at 3:13 a.m. Not 3 o'clock, not 3:15, always 3:13. The digital clock on my nightstand glowed that number, like it was branded into my eyelids. I thought it was coincidence, or maybe my body adjusting to a new routine. But as the days passed, the awakenings became stranger. The silence in my room felt heavier at that hour. My breath, though calm, felt loud. The air around me still, but not still like peace. Still like something was holding its breath beside me. It wasn't until the 7th night that I saw it. I was half asleep, curled on my side, eyes half-lidded, just conscious enough to sense something was wrong. My vision, blurred by sleep, adjusted slowly to the darkness of the room. That's when I saw it. Something blacker than the dark. A shadow with form but no features. Low to the ground, crawling, it moved slowly, not jerky, not fast, just deliberate. From the foot of my bed, it slithered upward. Its hands, or what I assumed were hands, gripping the edges of the mattress as it hoisted itself higher, inch by inch. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I just watched. It didn't make a sound. Not even the creak of the mattress under its weight, but I could feel it. The shift in air, the pressure. I blinked and it was closer now, at my knees. Now at my waist. It stopped when it reached my chest. Its face, or lack of it, hovered inches from mine. My body was frozen, my breath shallow, my heart loud. It didn't attack, it didn't whisper, it just laid beside me, and I passed out. When I woke up, it was daylight. The room was empty. My bed was neatly made. It felt like a dream until I saw the deep drag marks on the floor, like fingers had scraped the wooden planks beside my bed. The next night, I didn't want to sleep. I drank coffee, watched TV, kept the lights on, but sometime past midnight, I dozed off on the couch. At 3:13 a.m., I jolted awake. On the TV screen, which I'd left on a paused show, the reflection of the room was visible. My couch, my window, and behind me a shadow. Crawling, I turned, but nothing was there. After that, it followed me everywhere. Not directly. It didn't walk into rooms while I was in them, but it was always in the periphery. A flicker in a mirror. A darkened corner that took too long to brighten. The pause between a light switch and the bulb reacting. I went to a therapist. They said sleep paralysis, hallucinations, stress. I wanted to believe them, but I knew, I felt it. Each night at 3:13, the shadow got bolder. It no longer waited at the foot of the bed. I'd wake up with the blankets pulled halfway off. Once, my pillow was on the floor, and something cold was touching my hair when I opened my eyes. Then, one night, I set up a camera. Just my phone, propped up with books on the dresser, pointed at my bed. The next morning, I reviewed the footage. My stomach turned as I watched myself sleeping peacefully until 3:13 a.m. Nothing for a moment. Then, at the edge of the frame, the shadow appeared, crawling slowly, as if savoring the time. It paused at the foot of the bed, then pulled itself up. When it reached my sleeping self, it didn't lie beside me this time. It leaned in. Its head hovered inches above mine, and then its form dissolved, like smoke sinking into skin. I flinched in the video. My legs twitched. I mumbled something unintelligible. Then I went still, dead still. I watched myself lie there, no longer moving for the next 2 hours. Then, at dawn, I inhaled sharply, like I'd just returned from drowning. That day, I felt different. Like something was behind my eyes. Like my thoughts weren't entirely mine. I started forgetting things. Small things. What I had for breakfast. A friend's name. But then, bigger things. Like where I was going while driving, or waking up in places I didn't remember falling asleep in. One morning, I found mud on my feet. The front door was unlocked. My hands were trembling. Whatever it was, it wasn't just visiting anymore. It was settling in. Last night was the worst. I woke up gasping. Not in my room. Not on my bed. I was in the hallway, lying on the floor. The camera was still recording. When I played it back, this time the shadow didn't crawl in. I crawled out. At 3:13 a.m., I sat up in bed, but not like a sleepy person waking. It was mechanical. Rigid, I turned to the camera, stared directly into it. My eyes were pitch black, my smile inhuman. Then I crawled out of frame. Now I sit here, writing this. It's 3:11 a.m. The lights just flickered, and I feel it again, that presence. But tonight, I don't think it's going to crawl into bed with me. I think it's already inside, and it's crawling deeper. I had been dealing with sleep paralysis for a few months, but this was different. Sleep paralysis is usually silent, oppressive. You wake up, you can't move, and maybe, if your mind plays cruel tricks, you hear things, or feel pressure on your chest. But what happened on that night? It wasn't imagined. It was real. It began like it always did. I woke up, unable to move, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me. A light whir. No noise from the street outside. No footsteps in the hallway. My body frozen under the heavy comforter. But then, I felt it. The air in the room changed. Not colder, but denser. Like something was standing too close, just out of view. The pressure wasn't on my chest this time. It was at my feet. The blanket tugged slightly, just once, like someone testing it. My heart thudded so loud it felt like it would burst through my ribs. I told myself, "You're dreaming, hallucinating." I always did that. Coached myself through the terror. But then it happened again stronger. The sheet pulled. Not like it fell, not like it shifted. It pulled with force. It slipped off my toes, then my shins. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. My breathing got louder, shallower. My arms stayed stiff beside me, my eyes wide open, forced to stare forward into the blackness. The sheet slid down my knees, dragged by something I couldn't see. My skin was exposed to the cold air, but no fan, no breeze, no windows were open. Just cold, silent, watching cold. Then, the whisper, It didn't come from outside. It came from inside the mattress. Like someone was beneath me, their mouth against the coils and springs. A hiss, gentle as breath. I found you. My eyes rolled in panic. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to vanish. The sheets were down to my waist now. I couldn't feel hands, just the undeniable pull. I was being undressed. From the corner of my vision. Something moved slow and crawling. A shadow slithering across the wall like oil, circling the bed. It didn't make a sound, didn't touch anything, just watched. I blinked hard. Nothing changed. I closed my eyes, and I could still see it. Like the darkness was inside my eyelids. The figure long, formless, hunched, with something like a head, but no eyes, no face leaned over me. I couldn't hear breathing, but I felt it, as if it was learning the rhythm of mine. Then the whisper came again, this time from beside my left ear. You don't belong here. I tried to scream. I really did, but my jaw was locked. My throat refused. Only my eyes were free, and they burned with tears. The blanket was gone now, my body exposed. I felt the weight shift on the bed beside me, like something sat down next to my ribs. It didn't sag the mattress, but I could feel the shift, a dip in space, a pressure against my side. I wanted to faint. I prayed to faint, and then it touched me. Not skin to skin, not cold, but warm, soft like fingertips brushing against my collarbone, except they didn't stop. They traced upward, slowly toward my neck. Then came the sound of the sheets tearing. I thought I would die. I begged my brain to let me black out, and I did. When I woke, it was morning. My blanket was neatly folded at the foot of the bed. My pillow was soaked in sweat, and the sheets clean through the center, as if sliced from below. I told myself it was a hallucination, a stress response, a waking nightmare. But then I noticed something in the corner. Not a shadow, not a figure. Fingernail marks, 6 of them, scraped into the wooden floor, right next to the side of the bed, as if someone had held on, or had been dragged back under. And now, every night, 3 a.m. comes. I don't sleep. I can't. Because when I do, the sheets begin to shift again. And every time they do, they get faster, more confident, closer to the neck. I moved into the apartment on a cold, gray Tuesday. I hadn't planned to. The place wasn't even on the listing. I found it by accident. After wandering down an unfamiliar alleyway and seeing a crooked sign taped to a wooden door, flat for rent, no deposit, immediate move-in. Inside, the landlord was a man with thin hair and yellowish eyes who barely spoke. He handed me the key without asking for ID. "Don't worry," he said in a voice that felt like it had crawled out of a drain. "It already likes you." I laughed awkwardly, assuming he meant the apartment. But I didn't ask questions. The rent was impossibly low, and I was tired of couch surfing and sharing rooms with people I barely knew. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. The windows didn't face the street, only a narrow alley with a brick wall. There were no birds, no passing footsteps, no outside sound at all. Only the humming of the refrigerator and the ticking of an antique wall clock. That first night, I unpacked the essentials and fell into bed by midnight. I was exhausted. I hadn't slept properly in weeks, and that night, I finally did. But the dream I had wasn't a dream. It was her. She stood at the foot of the bed. Tall, motionless, her hair hanging wet across her face. I couldn't see her features, only the faint outline of her eyes. They glowed, pale and distant, like headlights through fog. I woke up with a jolt. The room was cold, the kind of cold that gets inside your teeth. My neck was stiff, my fingers were numb, and still, even though my eyes were open, I could see her. Not as a memory, as a presence. She was still there. I blinked, nothing. She was gone. But from that moment on, I saw her every time I closed my eyes. Not in dreams, in real time. I could close my eyes for just a second, and there she would be, standing in a corner, crawling on the ceiling, lying beside me, watching me. Her face was always the same, blurred, as if smudged by hands, too afraid to reveal what lay underneath. Her hair dripped without stopping, soaking the floor, though the floor was never wet. I told myself it was sleep paralysis. I even went to a clinic. They found nothing wrong. You're mentally and physically fine, the doctor said. Try meditation, but meditation made it worse. With my eyes closed longer, she came closer, closer than ever before. I could feel her breath on my cheek, hear the soft mucus rattle in her throat as she whispered words I couldn't understand. One night, I taped my eyes open just to stay awake. They burned, my vision blurred, but I was too afraid to blink. Then she changed. I noticed it in the mirror. My reflection lagged behind by just a moment. I would smile and it would catch up late. Then one day, it didn't smile at all. Instead, her face looked back at me. Not the same as mine, hers. The wet-haired, blank-eyed woman from the dark. She was inside the reflection. Behind the skin, behind my blinking. A layer beneath the surface, waiting, not haunting, merging. Every time I closed my eyes, I didn't see her standing across the room anymore. I saw from her perspective. I saw my own sleeping body. I saw my own reflection brushing its teeth, blinking, crying, panicking. I was watching myself, and I couldn't stop. My body still moved in the real world, still answered calls, still spoke to neighbors, but I wasn't in it. I was somewhere else, somewhere dark, wet, and cold. I tried screaming once, not with my mouth, but in thought. Inside that place, I screamed for hours, but all I heard in return was her voice whispering gently through the dark. Don't blink. Now, I keep the lights on always. I drink coffee until my hands shake. I tape my eyes open again, but she still finds ways to show herself, in the fridge door, in the bathwater, in the black screen of my laptop. I tried sleeping with the TV on once, thinking maybe noise would help. But when I closed my eyes for just a moment, I saw her sitting cross-legged in front of me. And this time, she was smiling, not angry, not sad, just calm, as if she'd been waiting, as if this was always going to happen. I don't know how much longer I can go on like this, because lately, I've been blinking without realizing it. And when I blink now, I see her on this side of my eyes, not watching me, but waiting for me to stop watching her, because the moment I do, she will become me, and no one will ever know the difference. The first thing I noticed was the ceiling. It wasn't mine. It was a cracked white surface with a swirling plaster design like a fingerprint pressed into wet paint. There was a single brown stain in the corner above me, shaped like a teardrop. I stared at it for a long moment, heart pounding, breath caught between sleep and wakefulness. The second thing I noticed was the bed. It was too firm, too wide. The blanket was scratchy, and the sheets smelled faintly like mildew and mothballs. I sat up. This wasn't my room. It wasn't my apartment. I didn't recognize the dull green wallpaper, the heavy wooden dresser across from the bed, or the small round window with sheer curtains that fluttered though no breeze came. I swung my legs out of bed. The floor was cold and slightly wet. I pulled my feet back up instinctively. Then, bracing myself, I stepped down again. The wetness soaked into my socks. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. My voice sounded flat. In the room, like the walls, swallowed it. I walked to the window and pushed the curtain aside. Nothing. Literally nothing. Not a garden, not a tree, not even darkness. Just gray, dense, endless fog. As if someone erased the world just outside the glass. That's when the mirror across the room caught my attention. It stood taller than me, covered in a thin white sheet. I approached, heart thudding. My hand hesitated at the edge, then slowly pulled it down. The mirror was dusty, but what disturbed me wasn't the grime. It was the reflection. The bed behind me was empty. I could see myself, but the blanket was undisturbed. No imprint where I had just been sitting. I turned around. The bed was clearly rumpled. I looked back at the mirror. Perfectly smooth. Me. Then my reflection blinked. I didn't. I stepped back, nearly tripping over a small wooden stool. This was wrong. All of it. I needed to find a door. There were two. One near the mirror, and one to the far left. I chose the closer one. It didn't open. Not locked, but sealed shut. The handle wouldn't even jiggle. I turned to the second. It opened with a creak that went on too long, like a breath being drawn in. The hallway outside was wrong. Too long. Too quiet. The light above flickered faintly, but I couldn't see the end of the hall. Just more doors. I stepped out. The floor creaked under me like I was being watched. Each door I passed was slightly open. Behind one, I saw a child's toy spinning slowly on its own. Behind another, a dusty dinner table set for a meal that looked 100 years old. Every time I paused, something shifted just out of sight. I tried to call out again, but the moment I opened my mouth, the lights flickered out completely. Dark, I stood frozen. Then I heard it, a breath, not mine. It came from behind Milo, raspy, close. I spun, heart in my throat, but no one was there. A door slammed shut far down the hall. I ran toward it, shoes slipping on the uneven wood, arms outstretched in the dark. I reached the door, turned the handle, it opened. Inside was another bedroom, but not the one I woke up in. This one was blue, with a mobile hanging from the ceiling and a crib in the corner. The air smelled sweet, like baby powder and decay. In the crib, something moved. I stepped closer, slowly, silently. There was a blanket inside, pale yellow. It rose and fell gently, as if something beneath it was breathing. I reached forward and pulled the blanket back, empty, but still breathing. Then I heard it, giggling, from behind me. I turned, nothing. I looked back into the crib. There was a face staring up at me now, small, pale, wide eyes that didn't Blink. It opened its mouth, and a second mouth inside it began to speak. "You're not supposed to be here yet." I stumbled backward, knocked over the rocking chair, and ran out the door. But now the hallway had changed. It wasn't narrow anymore. It was circular, spiraling down, a staircase leading into darkness, as if I were being pulled into the core of the house. I had no choice. I descended. Each step groaned under me, each one colder than the last. My breath fogged in front of my face, and behind me, I heard the faint patter of feet soft, crawling, just a second behind. When I reached the bottom, the room opened into what looked like a sitting area. A fireplace burned without wood. Paintings lined the walls, all of them staring straight ahead. I looked at one closely. It was of the bedroom I had first woken up in. In the bed, a figure lay still wrapped in blankets. I reached out to touch the frame, and the fire behind me hissed. The flames turned blue. The painting's eyes moved. The eyes in all of them moved. I backed up. Then, a voice whispered from the wall beside me. "You dreamt your way in. Now dream your way out." I spun, but no one was there. "You never left," it said again, behind me now. I turned. There was a door I hadn't seen before. Shaking, I opened it. Inside was the same room I had first woken up in, same tear-shaped stain on the ceiling, same window with fog, same bed, undisturbed, and someone was sleeping in it. I stared at myself, breathing softly, eyes shut. My hand trembled as I reached forward. Then the version of me in the bed opened his eyes and whispered, "Too late." Everything shattered. I woke up screaming in my real apartment. My room, my bed, my ceiling fan spinning lazily. Sunlight peeked through the blinds. I was sweating, heart pounding. It was just a dream. I stumbled out of bed, walked to the kitchen for water, but as I passed the hallway mirror, my reflection blinked a second late, and smiled. Amen had always been a restless sleeper. He'd toss, turn, roll, even sometimes fall off the bed. Blankets ended up crumpled on the floor, pillows thrown across the room. Every morning was a mess, chaotic, expected, and routine, until he moved into the new apartment. It wasn't fancy. Just a quiet studio in a slightly older building, with gray walls and low ceilings. He had taken it for the low rent, not caring about the flickering hallway light or the oddly cold bedroom floor. Amen just wanted solitude, peace to work on his freelance graphic projects without being disturbed. The first night was quiet, too quiet. He woke up feeling unusually rested, but something was off. His blanket was tucked in tightly, perfectly, across his chest, under his arms, down to his feet, as if someone had swaddled him while he slept. He blinked at the ceiling, frowned. "I move in my sleep," he whispered to himself. "I always wake up sideways or on the floor." He assumed maybe he had been too tired. Maybe he slept still for once. Coincidence. But it wasn't, because the next night, it happened again, and the next and the next. No matter how wildly he slept, no matter how much he thrashed before sleep, or how loosely he wrapped the blanket, he always woke up fully tucked in, perfectly neatly, symmetrically. It wasn't just strange. It was unnatural. He tested it. Set up his phone camera, pressed record, and placed it on the table near his bed. That night, he slept without a blanket entirely, just to see what would happen. In the morning, he awoke to find himself wrapped in the same blanket. It had come from the closet, folded untouched, now wrapped around him, tight as ever. The video corrupted. A static glitch covered the recording, from 2:59 a.m. to 3:15 a.m., exactly the time he began to feel cold each night. The kind of cold that crept from under the bed, from inside the walls, from a breath that didn't belong to him. By the fourth night, he began waking up at exactly 3 a.m., not out of fear, but from the sensation of hands, not visible, just the undeniable pressure of something smoothing the blanket across his arms, tucking the sides gently, almost lovingly. Ammon tried to speak once, to move, but he was frozen, eyes wide. A shadow hovered in the far corner. It didn't move, didn't shift, but he knew it was watching. And worse, he knew it was there for him. He told himself it was sleep paralysis. He Googled it, read stories, tried to believe it. Until he met Ms. Durrani. She lived 2 floors down, an older woman, always seen watering the dying plants outside her door. One day, as he passed her in the hallway, she stopped him. "You're in 403, aren't you?" she asked, her eyes suddenly sharp. He nodded. "Yes. You've been sleeping well." He hesitated. "I guess. Why?" She looked around nervously, then whispered, "You should switch rooms, or leave." He asked why, but she shook her head and walked away. "Don't let it get used to you," she mumbled. "Once it tucks you in, it doesn't like to stop." That night, Ammon slept on the couch. And yet, when he awoke, it was on the bed, tucked in perfectly. Now he was scared. He called a friend to stay over Fawad, his closest buddy since university. Fawad was a skeptic, logical, and loud-mouthed. "Bro, it's sleepwalking," he said, chuckling. "You probably just do it yourself and forget." They both stayed up late, watched Netflix, joked about ghosts. Around 2:45 a.m., Fawad began to feel uneasy. "Is it colder now?" Ammon nodded. Every night, at 3 a.m., the lights flickered. Ayman's phone buzzed. Static erupted from the speaker. The blanket, folded neatly on the foot of the bed, lifted slightly. Fawad stared, stunned. "Did you see that?" The blanket snapped open, as if unseen hands were shaking it out. Ammon couldn't move. Fawad began to hyperventilate, and slowly, with impossible precision, the blanket floated toward the bed, draped itself over Ammon, and began to tuck itself in, corner by corner, tight, symmetrical, perfect. Fawad ran, out the door, down the hall, never looked back. When Ammon awoke the next morning, he was alone. No Fawad, no texts. The blanket was tucked, of course. That evening he received a voicemail from Fawad, stuttering through tears. It doesn't blink, the thing in your room. It watched me the whole time. Don't go back, man. It lives in the blanket." But he couldn't leave. He tried. Packed his things, drove across the city to a cousin's place. But at 3 a.m., he woke up in bed. His bed tucked back in the apartment, as if he'd never left. The locks were still bolted from inside. He was trapped. The apartment had become a cage. A cold, quiet box, where something waited every night for him to close his eyes to sleep wild, so it could tuck him again, so it could keep him still. One night he screamed into the void. "No, you're there. What do you want from me?" Silence. Then, a whisper from under the bed, from inside the pillow, from beneath the blanket. "You move too much." He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, and that night, the blanket was tighter. Smothering, suffocating, he nearly passed out. Before it loosened again, it was angry now. No one would visit. Fawad blocked his number. Ms. Durrani moved out. The landlord wouldn't pick up. Amin tried sleeping standing up, in the shower, on the kitchen floor. But no matter what, he'd wake up tucked into the bed. Neatly, softly, completely. He started to lose track of days. Time blurred. 3 a.m. became his only clock. Until one night, he didn't wake up at all. At least, not as himself. Because now, when someone new rents the room and lies down for the first night, their blanket sometimes tucks itself without touch. And in the morning, they swear. They saw someone under the sheet with them, pressed tightly, a face, eyes wide open, not breathing, not blinking, just watching. Because Amun never left. And now it's his turn to tuck you in. Good night, sleep. Still, don't move. And for God's sake, don't kick off the blanket. It started on the coldest night of the season, the kind of night where the silence is so thick it hums in your ears. Theo had just moved into an old Victorian house outside the city 3 stories tall, ivy creeping up the bricks, and enough creaking wood to make every step sound like a whisper. He wasn't looking for company. In fact, after his divorce, he wanted the opposite. Solitude, space, a place to think. The house had stood empty for years. The locals didn't say much about it, just that it had history. Theo didn't ask questions. The price was good, and he didn't believe in ghost stories. The first night, the heater failed. Wrapped in layers, Theo fell asleep under thick quilts in the master bedroom. The room was vast, the ceilings high. Shadows danced in the corners, even when he turned off every light. But it was quiet. Until 3:41 a.m. That's when he felt the bed dip. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't like a blanket settling or springs shifting. It was deliberate, heavy, like someone had just sat down beside him. His eyes opened wide in the dark. The room was still. He didn't move, didn't breathe. He stared toward the spot where the weight pressed the mattress down, just inches from his hip. There was no outline, no movement, but the sensation remained. It stayed there for 5 minutes. Then slowly, the pressure lifted. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, Theo rationalized it. The bed was old. Maybe the frame shifted. Maybe it was his own body weight redistributing. He didn't talk to anyone about it. But it happened again, and again. Always at 3:41 a.m. Always the same dip, the same silence. By the 4th night, he couldn't pretend anymore. So he did what curious, logical people do. He placed a cup of water on the nightstand and a thin layer of flour over the sheets before sleeping. If something touched the bed, he'd know. He awoke sharply same time 3:41 a.m. The bed dipped. This time, it felt colder than before, like something not alive had shape and presence. He didn't dare move. But in the dim moonlight, he saw it. The water in the glass rippling gently, as if reacting to a tremor. And in the flour an impression. Not a full hand, not a footprint. Just the outline of pressure, as though a knee had rested there briefly. When morning came, the mark had faded. He told himself it was still nothing, but then came the voice. The following night, as he turned over to sleep, the room unusually still, he heard a faint exhale, like a breath close to his ear. Then a whisper. "Are you awake?" He froze. It wasn't a voice he knew. It wasn't even quite human. The tone was too neutral, too calm, as if asking the question purely out of habit, not curiosity. He didn't respond. The bed dipped. He kept his eyes closed, every muscle tight. But then, the whisper came again. "I used to sleep here too." And just like that, Tit was gone. The next day, he called a local historian. An old man named Paul agreed to meet him at the cafe. When Theo described the location and the occurrences, Paul's face paled. "That house, it belonged to a woman once," he said. "Her name was Eleanor Crane. She went missing decades ago. Vanished from that very bed. The only thing they ever found was the deep impression on the mattress beside her sleeping husband. He said it felt like someone sat down, then she was gone. No forced entry, no noise, just gone." Theo's stomach churned. He returned home before dark, unsure whether to stay. But part of him needed to understand why him. Why now? That night, he didn't sleep. He sat in bed, back against the headboard, lights dimmed. The alarm clock glowed red, 3:40 a.m. He waited. 1 minute later, the mattress dipped. It was more intense, now more confident. He heard nothing. But the weight beside him was undeniable. Then, something else. A cold hand touched his shoulder. Not painful, just resting there. He turned slowly. There was no one there, but the cold remained. The next morning, he found the handprint in the flour again, this time with one word. Scrawled beneath it, "Stay." Theo didn't leave the house. Over the next few weeks, the nightly visit became routine. The dip in the bed, the weight, the occasional whisper. But it never hurt him, never dragged him. It was just there, watching, sharing space. He set up cameras. Nothing ever showed. He brought in priests. They felt uneasy, but found no signs of possession or malevolence. Theo began to speak to it, and it listened. Not with replies, but with silence that felt attentive. He began sleeping better, felt less alone. The loneliness that once crippled him after the divorce began to fade, but it wasn't peace. It was still presence. One night, he asked aloud, "Why me?" The bed dipped, and a voice whispered back, "Because you didn't run." He never asked again. Years passed. Theo grew older in that house. He stopped inviting people over, stopped explaining things. The village called him eccentric, strange, but he never moved. And every night, at 3:41 a.m., the bed dipped. Sometimes, silence is companionship. Sometimes, being watched is better than being alone. And sometimes, the presence that sits beside you doesn't want revenge. It just doesn't want to be forgotten. Because not all hauntings scream. Some just sit quietly beside you. And never leave. It began gently. So gently that I didn't even think it was real the first time. A soft warmth pressed against my forehead in the dead of night, delicate, fleeting, like the brush of someone's lips. I woke instantly, heart racing. The room was dark, the fan was still spinning slowly above me, and the quiet hum of the refrigerator echoed from the kitchen down the hall. I lay there, frozen, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. My first thought was, maybe it was just a dream. Some residual memory from childhood. Something soft and innocent. But I live alone, and I haven't been kissed in years. I brushed it off. One-off things happen all the time. We've all woken up to imagined sensations falling, touching, even hearing our name whispered from nowhere. But the next night, it happened again. This time, I was facing the wall, my back to the room, when I felt it. The kiss again. Slight pressure, slight warmth. A touch so gentle, it was almost loving. It didn't hurt. It didn't alarm me like a jump scare might. Instead, it unsettled me in a deeper way because it didn't feel wrong. It felt familiar. I sat up, immediately switching on the lamp beside me. The room lit up in warm yellow. No one was there. The door was closed and locked. Windows shut. My phone lay untouched beside my pillow. I checked every corner of the room, every creak in the floor, but found nothing. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. On the third night, I set up my phone to record. Not because I expected anything to show up, but because I needed to prove to myself that I was imagining it, that it was all in my head. I angled it to the bed, facing me, and left the flashlight on a low beam. At 3:12 a.m., I felt it again, a kiss. Warmer this time, longer. On the exact same spot on my forehead. I opened my eyes immediately and looked at the camera. It was still on, still recording. I didn't dare move. Just slowly reached over and stopped the video. The next morning, with trembling hands, I opened the footage. For the first 3 hours, I just slept, occasionally turning. At 3:11 a.m., the screen glitched once, just a flicker, a small one. Then again, at 3:12, a brief blur moved across the bottom of the frame. It wasn't a shape, not even a proper shadow, just a distortion in the image, like heat rippling off asphalt. But at exactly 3 hours, 12 minutes, and 46 seconds a.m., the moment I'd felt the kiss, the camera glitched again, the frame froze. For 10 full seconds, it remained frozen. When it resumed, I was still asleep, but my face had turned slightly, and my mouth had parted, like I'd responded. I didn't post the video. I didn't tell anyone, because how do you explain that something kissed you in the night, and you weren't afraid? You were confused, unsettled, but not terrified. Not yet. By the fourth night, things began to shift. I started waking up to strange smells. Faint perfume, lavender, I think. My bedsheets were wrinkled in odd ways, as if someone had lain beside me. Once, I found a faint handprint on the pillow next to mine. Smaller than mine. Slender fingers. I pressed my hand to it. It didn't match. And then there were the whispers. Not words. Just soft hushing sounds. Breathing that didn't belong to me. At first, I only heard them when I was about to drift off to sleep. Then they grew louder. Closer. One night, as I lay on my back with my eyes open, the room completely dark, I heard a breath right above me, followed by a whisper so low it vibrated inside my ears. "Don't open your eyes this time." I froze. Every part of my body screamed to run, to scream, to move, but I didn't. I couldn't. I just lay there, breathing shallow, listening to the silence that followed. That night, I felt the kiss again. Only this time, it was colder. The next day, I dug through old journals, photos, messages, say anything that could give me a clue. Was this a memory? A presence from the past? Someone I once knew, but I couldn't find a connection. No past lover. No childhood memory. Nothing to make sense of it. I started sleeping with lights on, but it didn't help. The kiss came anyway, more forceful now. I began to feel the weight of someone sitting beside me. Once, I felt fingers graze my neck. Not violently, not aggressively, but possessively, as if something had decided I belonged to it. I started sleeping on the couch. It followed, then in my car. It followed. Then in a hotel. It still found me. One morning, after a sleepless night at a hotel downtown, I returned home and found something terrifying. My bed was made, pillows arranged neatly, and right there, on my pillow, was a red thread tied into a bow. I don't own anything with red thread. I don't sew. It left it for me. That evening, I noticed a change in the mirror. I stared at my face after washing it and saw it. A faint mark on my forehead. A smudge, a shape. It was a lip print, pale, faint. But there I rubbed it. It didn't come off. I stopped sleeping for days. The doctor prescribed pills. I didn't take them. I wasn't insane. I was being claimed. And then came the night that broke me. I was dozing off on the couch, too exhausted to fight anymore. Somewhere between sleep and wakefulness, I heard a voice whisper clearly for the first time. This time it wasn't a breath or a hush. It said, slowly and lovingly, I missed you. You're mine now. I opened my eyes. There was no one there, but I could still feel the breath on my face, and the warmth of invisible lips pressed gently against my forehead. I write this now, not to warn you, 'cause there's nothing you can do to stop it if it starts. Not to ask for help, because no one can help. I write this because I don't know how much longer I can go on pretending this isn't happening. Every night, it becomes more real, more present, more intimate, and the worst part, I've stopped fearing it. Now I wait for it, because whatever she is, she's the only one who touches me anymore. And I think tonight, she won't stop at my forehead. Adam had lived alone for years, and he liked it that way. A one-bedroom apartment on the 12th floor of a gray, silent building. Quiet neighbors, locked doors, order, routine, every night. He brushed his teeth at 10 o'clock, made tea, watched one episode of something forgettable, and fell asleep by 11:15 sharp. No parties, no surprises. His life was calm, if not a bit empty. But calm doesn't always mean safe. It started subtly. On a Tuesday, he woke up and noticed the closet door slightly ajar. He always closed it before sleeping. He was obsessive about it. Still, he chalked it up to forgetfulness. Then Wednesday morning, his toothbrush was wet before he even used it. Thursday, the tea kettle was warm when he entered the kitchen at 7 a.m., though he hadn't touched it. But Friday broke everything. He woke up just after sunrise to a strange chill in the room. The air was thick, heavy, like something had been breathing beside him for hours. As he rubbed his eyes and turned over to adjust his pillow, he froze. There, neatly folded on top of his pillow, was a piece of paper, plain, torn from a notepad, and written in strange, loopy handwriting. Were 5 words, "Thanks for the night." He sat up so fast that the bed creaked loudly. The room looked normal, no broken windows, The front door still locked, no signs of forced entry. But his heart pounded in his throat. He hadn't had anyone over, not in years. The note had a faint scent, lavender, maybe, or something older, like dust and flowers. His hands shook as he picked it up. The paper was cold. He checked everything. Under the bed, inside the closet, behind the curtains. He pulled the couch cushions apart. Nothing. Eventually, convincing himself it had to be a prank or sleepwalking, he threw the note away and tried to forget. That night, he double-checked every lock. He placed a chair under the doorknob. He even pushed a small box in front of the closet door so it would make noise if moved. He kept the lights on. And still, he dreamed. In the dream, he was in bed. His own bed. But the room around him was darker. Not black, just dimmed like an old photograph. The walls stretched higher. The corners seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. And someone was lying beside him. He couldn't see her, but he could feel her. Skin like ice. Hair falling gently across his arm. A scent, sweet, powdery old, filled the air. She whispered things, low and soft, into his ear. I missed you. I'm so glad you stayed this time. You looked peaceful. He tried to turn his head to see her, but something held him in place. Not physically, but with the overwhelming weight of a dream that refuses to let go. Then, she said it. Don't wake up yet. I'm still here. He woke up gasping, and found another note. You looked cute when you twitched. His apartment was still locked. Chair under the knob. Closet unmoved. But his pillow was warm, as though someone had just been there. He stopped sleeping in his bed after that. He started sleeping on the floor, on the couch, even in his hallway once, but it didn't matter. She found him anyway. The notes returned, always more playful, more familiar. Missed cuddling last night. You dream so loud. That book on your shelf. You should finish it before I read it to you in person. He brought in a priest. The priest entered, walked the apartment, prayed softly under his breath, and paused when he stepped into the bedroom. His fingers clenched. The crucifix. He looked at Adam and asked, Have you invited anyone into your dreams lately? Adam was too stunned to reply. That night, he stayed awake the entire time, eyes wide, staring at the door. No sleep, no blinking, just waiting. 3:12 a.m. A hum started. Not loud, just a vibrating feeling, in his chest, in the walls, in the air. And then, the sheets beside him shifted. Like weight pressing into the mattress. Something brushed his shoulder. Very slowly, he turned his head. The bed was empty, but the indentation was there. A perfect human shape in the sheets, breathing gently beside him. He didn't move, until the whisper came again. Don't leave me alone tonight, he screamed. Jumped up, fled the apartment. That night, he slept in his car, 10 miles away. No dreams, just silence. When he returned the next day, nothing seemed disturbed, until he entered the bedroom. On the pillow, next to a single black hair curled in the corner, was a note. You really hurt my feelings. It was the first time the handwriting had changed. Jagged, shaky. He moved to a new place. New city, new furniture. Bought a mattress in store. Avoided antiques. Avoided lavender. Avoided everything. For a month, it worked. No dreams, no whispers. no notes. Then one morning, he woke up feeling strange. The window was open, though he never opened it. Cold air drifted across his face. On the nightstand, folded into a paper swan, sat a note. I found you, he ran, again and again. Motels, friends, couches, airport waiting areas. He hadn't slept in the same bed twice for 2 weeks. But she still came, not angry, not vengeful, just present, curious, attached, watching. She was never cruel. She didn't harm. She only watched, only whispered, only stayed. But he could feel her growing bolder. The whispers turned into conversations. The shape beside him stayed longer. Sometimes he swore he saw her in the mirror behind him, but smiling. Then one morning, Adam woke up in a hotel room he didn't remember booking. Different state, different bed, and on the pillow beside him, a note. Thanks for the night. I made it ours. And the bed beneath him, it wasn't hotel grade. It was the same one from his old apartment, wooden frame, soft lavender scent, and her, always there, and never leaving again. It began with a growl, not a loud one, just a low, tense sound rumbling from beneath the breath, the kind a dog makes when it knows something is wrong. The night was ordinary. Rain tapped against the windows like impatient fingers, and the wind brushed against the old trees outside the house. Inside, everything was warm and quiet. Alina had just moved into this countryside home with her Labrador Rollo, her loyal companion for over 6 years. It was a fresh start, a peaceful one. But peace doesn't always mean safety. That night, she turned off the lights and climbed into bed. Rollo, as usual, hopped onto the carpet beside her. He always slept on her side, the right side, but just as she closed her eyes, she heard it. That low growl. She turned the lamp back on Rollo. She whispered. The dog was frozen, facing the edge of the bed, shoulders stiff, lips pulled back ever so slightly. Not barking, just growling. And not at the window or the door. No, he was growling directly at the space beside her bed, where she lay. Hey, she said again, trying to sound calm, even playful. There's nothing there, buddy. But Rollo didn't move. He didn't look at her. He kept growling at the air, or what she thought was air, right next to her. She checked under the bed. Nothing. She checked the window. Locked. The room felt normal, but Rollo refused to lie down. He stayed on his feet, facing that same spot, tense, alert. Eventually, she fell asleep. The second night, it happened again. And the third night, at exactly 2:47 a.m., not a minute earlier, not a minute later, she started leaving the lights on, not because she believed in ghosts. She didn't. She was a rational woman. She worked in software. She believed in wires and servers, and predictable things. But she couldn't explain why her dog, calm, affectionate, never reactive, growled only at that side of the bed. Her side. Then one night, something changed. She woke up at 2:47 a.m. to a sound. Not a growl, not rain. Something else. Breathing, not hers. It was slow, wheezing, like air passing through a throat filled with dust. It came from directly above her head, near the headboard. She froze. Not even her fingers twitched. Her heart pounded in her ears. Rollo stood beside the bed, this time, barking loud, deep, terrified barks. His teeth were bared, and he snapped at the air like he could see something she couldn't. The lights were off, and she was too scared to move. At dawn, she finally got out of bed, trembling. She recorded everything that day, took photos of the room, downloaded ghost hunting apps, searched forums. Most of them mocked her. Others told her to move, but she had just gotten here. This was her fresh start. She set up a baby monitor that night. Not because she had a child, but because it had motion sensors and sound detection. She placed it at the foot of her bed, pointing toward her pillow. When she reviewed the footage the next morning, most of it was static. Except at 2:47 a.m. That minute was preserved in horrifying detail. It showed her sleeping, Rollo, standing beside the bed, his head slowly tilting as if watching something. Then the blanket on her side slowly lifted. Not much, just an inch. But there was no wind, no fan, nothing that could have done that. A shape began to form, blurry but there, a shadow that didn't belong. And then the monitor went dead. She didn't sleep the next night. She sat on the couch downstairs, lights on, TV playing an old sitcom on loop. Rollo sat close to her, calm again. She watched the clock tick past 2:47. Nothing happened. But when she went back upstairs after sunrise, the room was ice cold. Her side of the bed, the sheets were wrinkled, as if someone had been lying there all night. She hadn't. Rollo wouldn't even enter the room. She began sleeping on the couch permanently. For 3 days, she avoided the bedroom, but the growling followed her. One night, Rollo started growling at the corner of the living room, then at the hallway, then at the stairs. Always at 2:47 a.m. Then it started before that. By the end of the week, Rollo was on edge from midnight onward, barking, pacing, circling her. And she felt watched. Like something stood behind her shoulder every time she brushed her teeth. Like something lay beside her, even when she was alone. She tried booking a hotel. It was full. She tried staying with a friend, their child. Got a fever as soon as she arrived, and she was asked to leave politely, nervously. She couldn't escape it. One night, she snapped. She took Rollo and stormed into the bedroom, camera on, lights blazing. "If something's here, show yourself," she shouted. Silence. Then the bulb flickered. Then blew out darkness. And then breath. Right next to her ear. She screamed. And ran out. When she played the footage back the next day, she saw herself standing, yelling. And behind her, just for a second, a shape. A tall figure, faceless, leaning out from the headboard, watching its long arms draped over the side of the bed. Then it faded into nothing. Now, she no longer sleeps at night. Rollo barely eats. They sit together in the hallway, staring into the darkened bedroom, door open just a crack. It always starts at 2:47. A whisper, a footstep, a shadow that stretches too far, a breath behind the breath. And Rollo growls, always at her side of the bed. Because whatever it is, it's still there, lying quietly, waiting, hungry, not for revenge, not for justice, just for her, because some things don't need a reason. They just are, and they never leave, even when you do. It started the first night, after I moved into the new apartment, a corner unit on the 3rd floor of an old brick building downtown. It was quiet, clean, and close to work, exactly what I needed, nothing fancy. Just enough space for me, my books, and my silence. I remember unpacking late into the night. The only light in the apartment came from the dull yellow bulb in the hallway and the soft flicker of a nearby street lamp through my window. The bedroom was the last to be set up. I placed the mattress on the floor, tossed the blanket on, and fluffed my pillow just once, carefully. The fabric was cool and familiar, like home. I fell asleep with the sound of rain tapping on the window pane. The next morning, I woke up groggy but rested. Yet something felt wrong. I looked at the pillow and froze. It was flipped. Not moved, not shifted. Flipped upside down. The side I had slept on, warm and slightly damped from my breath, was now facing up. The cool side was beneath my head. I sat up slowly. Was it a dream? Had I flipped it myself? Maybe. I did, in my sleep. I tried to shake it off. That night, I was more conscious. I settled in, placing the pillow in a specific way. The seam of the tag was facing my left ear, just so I'd know. Just so I could prove to myself there was nothing weird going on. When I woke up, the tag was on the right. The pillow had flipped again. By the third night, it wasn't just the flipping, it was the smell. A faint scent, lavender maybe, not mine. I don't use anything scented. It was like someone else had been lying there before me. Someone gentle, someone quiet. I tried changing the pillowcase, bought a new pillow, but the new one flipped too, every night. Always around 3 a.m., I began to notice it, not by looking at the clock. By feeling it, a slight pressure at that hour. Like the room breathed in, and didn't exhale. Like something shifted in the air, and in that frozen second, the pillow turned. I started recording myself with my phone camera propped against the wall. The first few nights, the videos showed nothing. Just me, asleep. Still, until the fifth night. At 2:59 a.m., the footage showed my body twitch slightly, then nothing. But at exactly 3 a.m., the blanket fluttered as if from a breeze. And then the pillow moved, not violently, not by a hand. It simply rotated, by itself. Smooth, precise. As if it had been waiting for the exact moment to do so. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I noticed something else. Faint lines across my arm. Not scratches. More like pressure marks. As if fingers had rested there while I slept. Not aggressive. Not painful. Just present. I told myself it was stress. I told myself I needed rest. But something inside me whispered that rest was the last thing I should be doing here. The pillow became my obsession. I stopped using it. I slept without one. Just the mattress. Just to test. The next morning, the pillow was under my head anyway. Perfectly aligned. Perfectly flipped. I brought a friend over, Mia. She stayed the night in the living room while I stayed in the bedroom. I didn't tell her about the pillow. I just wanted someone else in the apartment. At 3:07 a.m., she screamed. I ran out to find her pale, sweating, pointing to the hall. I heard something, she whispered. A whisper, it said, move, like right near my ear. Like a breath. We checked everything. Nothing was open. No one was there. She left before sunrise. I couldn't blame her. The next night, I tried to stay awake. Coffee, lights on, books, music, everything but 2:55 hit, and my body grew cold. My eyelids heavy. My breath slowed. I was being lulled. like something wanted me asleep. I lost consciousness at 2:58. Woke at 3:17. Pillow flipped. A single white hair on the sheets. I have black hair. I live alone. Desperate, I went to the building's superintendent, asked about the apartment's history. He avoided eye contact. There's nothing wrong with 3B, he said. Nothing anyone can prove. Prove what? I asked. He just shook his head. If the pillow flips, get rid of the bed. I never told him about the pillow. That night, I slept on the floor, outside the bedroom. At 3 a.m., the bedroom door creaked open. I hadn't closed it, and yet, it creaked open like someone had just stepped out. I looked in the room. The pillow was gone. I found it placed gently beside me on the floor. Perfectly aligned, flipped. That was when I realized. It wasn't the bedroom that was haunted. It was the pillow. I left the apartment that weekend, booked a motel, took nothing with me but clothes and my laptop, left the cursed object behind, slept peacefully for one night. On the second night in the motel, I woke up at 3:03 a.m. The pillow beside me was flipped. I hadn't brought mine. I checked the pillowcase. The tag was on the left when I slept. Now on the right. Lavender. Pressure on my wrist. And on the mirror, written in the fog from the bathroom steam, I like the cold side.